this or this?
I love it. I appreciate it. People are going to love it.
Oh my gosh. All right.
Welcome to Girls Gone Hallmark, a Hallmark review podcast. I'm Megan, and I'm a longtime Hallmark fan.
I'm Wendy. I'm a former Hallmark hater.
That's everyone's reaction when she says that. Today is a very exciting day as we are joined by none other than Kristoffer Polaha to talk about, among other things, his epic movie, The Christmas Quest. Welcome to Girls Gone Hallmark.
Hi, girls. How are you?
Thank you for being here.
God, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm like sweating a little bit. So like Megan's going to ask the bulk of the questions because I have no chill. So
Wendy was like, do you think he would come on the podcast? And I was like, can't hurt.
You might as well
you
ask.
are.
Well, we met each other on the cruise.
I know.
And what did I say? You look like a Nordic. What did I say? Like,
Oh my God.
remember what I said to you, Megan?
You did. Yeah.
I
There was
looked
no
at you and
hair.
you looked like you were blonde, like dusted with red gold or something. And I was like, you look like a Nordic ice princess or something.
Yeah,
And
you
kinda
did
looked
use the
like-
word queen, and I'm impressed that you remember as much as I do.
Yeah, and you looked at me like, I can't tell. And then, Wendy, you were shaking like a leaf. It was wonderful.
I tell no chill at all. Yeah, that was funny. We talked about that in our cabin afterwards. I made an Instagram story about it, but I don't think I ever published it because I was like, oh, he just complimented Megan, and then he was like, Wendy, do better. It's all good.
I don't think I said do better.
No.
I think I just was trying to let you breathe because you were.
I was having a moment because we stumbled upon you in the buffet area. I just came around the corner and there you were. It was so weird to see the celebrities out in the wild.
Yeah, I think going in, we're like, oh, it's okay. We don't, we're not going to fight people for pictures. And then we come around and Wendy's like, out of my way.
Elbows you in the face. You're like, ah.
Wendy was elbowed in the head by an overzealous Tyler Hines fan. So the fans did get wild. What was your experience like on the cruise? Because I think you did, of everyone, you were just out and about. You were meeting the people.
Well, here's the truth of that, Megan. Here's the truth. You sign up for a cruise, and you sign up to meet people, right? And people pay really good money to get on a cruise to meet these actors who are in these movies, and they want to have these meet and greets. And the one thing I like about sort of the Christmas con experience, who didn't ask me back this year, by the way. That's why
I was looking, and I'm shocked that you're not in that lineup.
Millie West. There was a couple other people, like Jonathan Bennett first wasn't asked, for whatever reason, and God bless him. But it was one of those things where the one thing, as transactional, as sort of insane or intense as that weekend is, if you want to just surf the crowd and go through and meet people really quickly, you can. And it's really about meeting people and the lines, you can have a moment, and as long as it takes someone to express, the thing that they want to express, and you can look somebody in the eyes, and it's one-on-one, and it's a really sweet way to meet the people. And I love, I grew up in the theater, so I did theater, and I love the idea of afterwards you have a stage door where you can meet, people would wait for you. If they really loved what you did, they would stand there behind the stage, or when you're in high school, just waiting out at the bottom of the stage, and you did great, this is Henry Higgins, and you're like, thanks. And there was, as a TV and movie actor, I miss that because I never get to meet my audience. I never get to meet the people that I'm entertaining and that I'm literally doing it for. And so in these instances, that's kind of like my little window, or my little chance to meet people. And I remember being on the boat. We did our first sort of group meet. It's 11 actors, and actors are zany, wild, loud, fun people to be around. But in all, good time and good place for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I remember looking at the horizon, and I was like, I have 4 days on this boat, and if I'm locked up on the 14th floor, in our little ivory tower, I'm gonna go mad. And so I found this guy Mike, Mike was
Your
was
security
one of our
guide.
security guards, but he's a
Yeah.
handle or whatever. And the only reason Mike was really necessary is because he became an excellent photographer. So it was easy just to
Yeah.
he would people would hand him his phone, he'd snap it, and then at which created a sense of flow. And I looked at Mike, and I was about to go into my little cabin, my little room, which frankly they were nice. They put us those. I was nice, like they were
We
nice.
saw some video. I was like,
Yeah,
whoa.
they were like, they were posh. I'm not gonna like. They were nothing little about them. Like they were beautiful. But I remember looking. I was like, I can either go and sort of fall into a sinkhole of self-loathing and why am I here kind of thing, and then not and ride that sort of programmed, scheduled thing that was going to happen, and so I just like took Mike and I said, dude, I'm itchy, I'm bored. Do you want to walk around the boat with me? Because I want to see the boat. I want to see
Yeah.
what kind of trip I'm on. And B, I want to go meet some people. And he's like, okay. So we went, and that first one was just like, I think it was when I met you guys. Was that first? Wasn't it the first day? Wasn't that first?
It was the first
It was
full
early
day. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Then we met
think-
you guys.
Okay, so maybe, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I met you.
It was definitely like,
Was it when we left the port?
no, because Wendy had a horrific travel experience. And so Tuesday was like, we were literally,
Yeah, right.
it took her 27 hours to get there from LA. So Tuesday didn't exist for us. Like we started fresh, and running into you Wednesday morning kind of was like all right, now we're going to have a great trip. Like I think
Yeah.
that reset everything for
That's
us.
cool. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I heard your podcast about how
It was
travels.
I slept in DFW airport. Yeah, it was interesting.
I'm surprised she
never-
didn't turn around and fly home. I was like, don't leave the airport.
You'll never think of Dallas Fort Worth the same. You'll be like,
Never.
Home
"You go
away
see the
from home.
stockyards?" No.
I mean, it was
Anyway,
lovely.
yeah, that was what was fun. Was really the joy of my trip. The whole thing that was like my raison people. Oh gosh, it's too early for French, but the reason, whatever
For living, yeah.
you know what I'm talking about. The French word for the raison persistance, or whatever the hell that French phrase is, was getting off and meeting you guys and like walking down with Mike, and it was fun. Like it was like a cool, mostly ordered and
Yeah.
it was mostly contained.
That's super cool. I bet your fans were not. I bet your fans were very excited to.
Well, I mean, there was so much talk about how good you were at it. And I think it did two things. Like, one, it made it so people weren't quite so bonkers in the limited moments that they might run into you, because there were
Yeah.
so many opportunities.
Yeah.
But also, like, it made people feel like it was just like special, like running into
Yeah.
someone like that. And you were so lovely to everybody, and not like they were inconveniencing you. Like that was,
Well, they're not. You guys, it's never yeah. I mean, this is honestly, it's like, here's what I'll say about actors. We can harness manic energy, or we can harness calm energy. And I think when I move through the world, like usually you see me with my wife and my kids, and it's like there's a thing of like, I don't really want to bother him because he's with his family, and it's like and so there's a way, I think, as an actor to move through the world where you can keep things calm for people.
Yeah.
And then there's actors who are like there's a bit of, they want a frenzy, they want to stir up a little, and there's a way to move through the world where, oh, you got to catch the tiger white, like it's a thing and it creates.
Yeah.
So I've deliberately spent my life trying to just be we're all people. We're literally all just people moving through the world together. I happen to work on TV, which is really funny because my kid the other night, we did watch Christmas Quest together in the hotel in Kansas City. And it's the first time I've watched a movie on the actual network. On
oh,
Hallmark
yeah.
in like 5 years. And so to see the commercials was really lovely. And to see how Burger King and how Nissan like did whole story, like segment commercials. But Caleb was like, that's weird. He's like, you're my dad and you're on TV. He's like, not a lot of people get to say that. So while
Yeah.
it's this cool thing, it's also just a thing. It's how I make my living. And I think that, I don't know. I think what
Well, I
you
think
guys
that's
do
the
is
right
cool.
perspective. I mean, like you have a very visible job, but yeah, it's your job.
Yeah.
You have a
Well,
job, more people know you.
Yeah, and I say that because, on the boat or in Kansas City, you wouldn't think that it's just a job based on some of the response.
Yes.
It gets a little crazy.
I agree. It's a little unbalancing a little
Yeah.
bit, but we had a good time.
So yeah, it was a great time. Would you go back on like for next year if they are having another cruise? If you're
if they were to
asked,
ask me
will you
back?
go back?
Yeah, I think so because it's these like to be really honest with you, like there's a certain amount of yeah, to answer your question, yes.
I mean, the cruise I think is harder. Like, there's all these. You're just back from the Kansas City fan experience. You did the bus situation, but the cruise is hard because it's 5 days and you're there. Like, you can't come in
Right.
and you can't come out.
Right,
You
you're
can't
locked.
your family can't come in and see you for a day. I mean, I know people traveled with like spouses or children, but I think it's a huge ask. And I remember when the cruise was being planned and the Facebook group people were going bananas, like, who's coming? Who's coming? And I was like, I think you guys need to like adjust your expectations of the planning of this because it's a bigger thing being trapped on a boat and it's a bigger ask.
Right. It's a bigger thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I had
Logistically.
fun. Like I actually enjoyed.
Yeah.
I mean, I did. Like I had fun. It was a cool. So yeah, I would do it again if asked.
We got to talk Quest, which, spoiler alert, we loved so much.
It was so great.
My only wish for the movie is that it got more promotion, like being in a weekend with so many movies.
Yeah.
I feel like when it first was announced, we heard so much about it, and then just there was this wave of announcements. But we loved it. This is your first time. We know you had like a brief appearance with Lacey in Hall at the Holly, but this is your first time co-starring, co-leading with Lacey. What was that experience like?
She's awesome. She is. Excuse me. I've had a cough since October 5th too.
Oh,
My body's done. It's like, dude, time to rest.
are you done for the year?
Yeah, I get
Oh,
to
good.
I get to hibernate here pretty soon. Lacey Chabert is the goat of holiday Christmas movies, and she's the goat for a reason. She is so kind and she is so professional, and she does this weird thing that's almost impossible to because it's her nature. It's how sweet she is and who she is and where she's from, but it's like there's this innocence, and so as she's delivering lines, there's a purity with which it's coming out of, and so she's not faking it. And so how decent she is to people and how aware she is of her crew and her surroundings, and she's a collaborator. And I'm somebody who, when you're on set, it really is the best idea wins, and if you're somebody who comes to the table with a ton of ideas, and you're going to be one of two ways. It's either like, this is my idea and this is how it's going to happen, and I'm not happy unless it happens, or, hey guys, what do you think about this? And what about this? And how about this? And best idea wins. And Lacey was like, we had so much fun. And then we had a great director, Dustin Reicher, who directed Billmore Christmas last year. Or he didn't direct Billmore Christmas, Synthetic Cinema produced it. So Dustin, Andrew, and Molly were in charge of Scottish Christmas last year, and a Biltmore Christmas, the holiday Tuddy movie this year, and mine, and then that Finish Line movie. So they had a huge weekend this weekend.
Yeah.
Big.
They had a big weekend, which was fun to see, and very proud. Because it's an awesome production company working out of Connecticut. And so when you have the right team, then anything is possible. And yeah, it was a fun, big movie.
Yeah, I mean, you got to film on location, and we saw that you were able to bring your family out, at least for part of it. How often do you get to do that? How important it is for you to have that opportunity?
When I go on a really cool location, I will bring them. I'll bring them just, hell or high water. Be like they came to Fiji with me. They came to Iceland with me. And in my life, like Caleb was born in Hawaii when I was working on North Shore, and they went to school up in Vancouver. They went to school in New York City. Like wherever I have jobs, they'll just come with me. And that got harder and harder and more difficult the older that they got, obviously.
Sure, yeah.
But for like a place like Iceland, it's interesting. My wife's, not to bring the show down, guys, sorry, Wendy might like this though.
Oh,
Stop. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna pick on Wendy.
Everybody does. It's okay.
No, it's out of love. So my father-in-law, my wife's dad died in 2018, and Hallmark, like a month later, hired me to go to Fiji and film Pearl in Paradise. And so that was this really kind of interesting way to squeegee out the grief. And it
Yeah,
didn't.
yeah.
It was just a momentary like wringing of the grief for the family and for Julianne. But going somewhere that far away and going somewhere that new and on an island was this interesting timestamp for us as a family in that particular moment. And then this year was a particularly hard year because she lost her mom. And then a month later, they hired me to go to Iceland. And so it was the same thing where we went to this other island, polar opposites of Fiji in color, temperature, food, people, everything, total opposites. But it was the same thing of like a new place and all these new experiences that were able to kind of help us like squeegee out the grief and like wring out the grief a little bit. So it's interesting how, I think God works in mysterious ways. And so it was a really cool, super grateful for those opportunities because they did more than just, it was more than just making a movie. It was, bringing my family somewhere and allowing us to have a beat from some pretty painful moments. And so, doubly beautiful in ways.
Yeah, not just a vacation, right? Like
Right.
replacing, building positive associations in that. That's really hard. I'm sorry for your wife. We do have a recurring segment on the podcast called Did You See That? And it's where we point out things people may have missed. And for example, Holiday Touchdown, the marquee behind in the town square had like a Tyler Hines movie, a Julie Sherman Wolf movie, and a Hunter King movie on the marquee. Thinking about Christmas Quest, is there anything you can think about that people might not have clocked on first watch or something cool that you think people should look out
Oh,
for?
that's so cool. Well, you mentioned the cameo that I did with Lacey.
Yeah.
When the phone rings, there's a photograph that shows up of Lacey and I. And that was a picture that I took while I was in Utah 2 years ago or whatever, filming Hall at the Holly. It was just, and if you look at the whole picture, it's me, Lacey, Wes Brown. And I think this girl, Elizabeth, I forget who's in the original picture. Sorry, guys.
No.
But yeah, that's kind of the little Easter egg from that. So that was
That's
like
so funny. That's
was
perfect. Did you see
Yeah.
that?
Amazing.
So look, this is not the first time you've played a character whose marriage is either has ended or is in trouble. We really loved We Wish You a Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Like we're women who are past like the first love, young love stages of life and married a million years. And so for us, we like seeing those stories reflected. How important is it for you to be able to tell that kind of story?
Well, I'm not on the executive level at Hallmark, obviously. But if I'm doing their programming, I'm not going to skew too young and make movies for 20-year-olds because I'll make a couple, you know what I mean? But the bulk and the meat and potatoes of why I think people love these movies is it's about the love that lasts a lifetime. It's about like meeting that person that you're like, oh God, this isn't just the hot hookup that I'm going to like move on from next week. This is like the person I'll spend the rest of my life with. And that happens in your 30s and it happens in your 40s. Like there's a chapter of your life where you're hoping for that to happen. And late 20s, I mean, like it happens, right? But so I think that it's fascinating. And I think like Lacey and I were talking about it and she's like, man, there are so many stories that I want to tell about, Nikki Deloche and I are working on something for next Christmas about this particular moment in a woman's life who's chosen to give up her career to raise kids. And what does that look like when they don't need her like they do when they're babies? And what is that transitional period of like, well, who am I now that I've, the babies are gone and they don't need me like
Oh my
they
God. You're hitting us like right where Megan has a senior in high school this year. I have a
Megan.
junior in high school. Like
Hello,
we're
Wendy.
in that phase, that transitional kind of phase.
Yeah.
Ooh, just hitting hard.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? You guys are going to love this even more. It was my wife's idea.
Oh, I love that.
It was
Well,
Julianne's idea.
I mean, you did send your first child to college last year, and as Wendy said, like we're on the verge of that life. Like we have a friend who their youngest son is about to go to college, and I was like, "Oh, are you like how?" And he was like, "Oh no, we're not empty nesters, we're bird launchers." And I was like, "Oh, I love that perspective. I'm not, I'm not going to be strong enough to have like we're launching them to the world happily. I'm like, please come home to me." But now that you're an old pro at launching children into the world, you have advice for people like us.
Oh
For
gosh.
us.
So we sent our second one to college this year.
Oh my goodness.
So last year was our firstborn. This year was our second, our middle kid. And now we have Jude at home, and we have him for 5 more years. Ladies, brace yourselves, gird your loins, because it's going to be the worst. You're
Yeah.
excited and you love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe you guys are gonna pop champagne and
No.
burn all the sweaters and pull out the left. I don't know. Some people might be different, but for me and for Julianne and I, it was like we we have this tribe and we love our family and we love time together. That was another thing. We just in Kansas City, we all met in the middle of the country and had Thanksgiving in Kansas City together, and it really was about like, we did the premiere, the big fancy premiere on Saturday night, and it was really just about my family and I, getting on that red carpet, taking a picture, and then going off to hear. We didn't watch the movie because Caleb was singing in the town square.
I know, that's amazing.
Yeah, like it was about this, you know what I mean? And honestly, they're the most interesting things about me. They're the greatest accomplishment. Like I've worked with some pretty amazing actors in some pretty cool movies, and they're still the most interesting thing and the best thing I've ever done. Like like the family is, and I think it's who we are. Like we're people, and our life is really about people. It's about each other and how we treat each other. And your family is that moment where you get to make the decision who you marry. You get to feel like, let's try to bring people into the world. And if you're lucky enough to do that, let's try to raise them right. And if you're lucky enough to do that, you want to send them off so that they can meet people and do that again. And there's this cycle of like life, right? And I don't know, it's such a strange culture that we live in right now, because all those fundamental sort of primary things are up for grabs, I guess. But it's like, it's so wonderful to, I don't know, just see your kids go off and try to make their mark in the world. But it is bittersweet.
Yeah,
I'll tell you a
wonderful
quick
and
story.
terrible.
I'll tell you a quick
Wonderful
story.
and terrible.
And when the reason why I said you were going to like it wasn't because it was like all sad. It was because there was a happy ending in it. And there was something I said and you were like, haha. So I knew you wouldn't. But about the dead parents-in-laws. No, but there was, when I was I lived in New York City. I went to NYU for acting, and I lived in the city. I lived in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, in fact, when my rent was $800 a month.
Wow.
And I had a walk-up apartment. It was a railroad flat, and it had like a living room with an office off to it, and a bathroom there, and then a kitchen, and then 3 rooms, and a walk-in closet. It was old, but it was like amazing, and it was $800. And I was a waiter, and I made about that much money in the first week and a half of the month. And so then I was making like, 2.5 weeks worth of just money I could go see plays with and eat and buy a cool coat or whatever. Like it was like I was a young man, and I was in New York City, and I was like making my life. I was auditioning for things. It was kind of perfect. And I painted the kitchen like ox blood red, which I probably would never do again. But like, so I had this red kitchen, but like, ox blood. And my window looked out in Greenpoint. It was all of these apartments around the block. And so there was a garden in the middle of all these buildings. So I looked out onto this garden, and each building had its own little, rectangular, that different people would take care of, rectangular gardens. And I was on this, walked up to the first floor. So I had a fire escape, and I could go out and sit on my fire escape and look out on this sort of mini block of gardens and watch people, grow their tomatoes or whatever it was. And there was a tree next to the window. So the fire escape, and imagine like the kitchen's like a square, right? So the fire escape's here, and there was a window that looked out, and the tree was here. And there was this bird in a nest, and it was a baby bird. And the baby bird was terrified of getting out of that nest. Like she just was like, or he was like flapping her little wings, whatever it was, little bird's wings. And was so excited, but so terrified of this moment of launching into the world. And the parents of the bird parents were like flying around, and they'd land on the branches and they'd fly around, and they would like try to get this little bird to go, 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 go. And I watched the whole thing happen. And then finally, this little bird gets up onto the edge of the nest, and little legs are bobbling and the little head, and it's just freaking out, and the wings are going crazy. And it takes its first flight, its leap, right onto my windowsill. So it just goes chip, 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 and lands on the windowsill. So here I am, like 21 or 22 years old, and I'm inches away from this little bird through the window glass, and I'm sitting here going like, that's me. Like, I'm you. You're me. You can do it. And I watched this bird for another maybe like 15 minutes debate its fate. And then it launched itself off, and it took flight, and it had this awesome little flight, and then it landed back up in the nest, and it was like this victory. And to be able to see that, and to be able to have this kind of metaphor in my life of like, oh, that's me. Like, it's terrifying, but you can do it. So as bittersweet as it is to send your kids off into the world, and as Mike is homesick, and Caleb goes through these moments of like, oh, like I just want to be home again. There's also this really cool thing that's about to happen to your kids, and they will take flight. As nerve-wracking as it is, there's this moment where it's absolutely terrifying, but then it turns into something special. Like, look at us. We're all adults, and we're making it in the world. It's okay.
I know. I like, on the one hand, we're so excited. Like, my husband and I talk, like, college was one of the greatest times of our lives, and so we're so excited for him. And on the other hand, I'm like, what is he gonna do when he gets sick? Like, all these little things. Like,
yeah. So Caleb, Caleb sings, right?
Yeah.
And and I promise you it was from a microphone, because we talked about it. He's super honest with us. But we're like, he got mononucleosis from singing on a microphone at an open thing. And frankly, he got so sick. And just like you, Megan, Julianne was at home being like, I was looking up nervous breakdown on my phone. I was like, what does a nervous breakdown look like? Because she was so, and
like having to stop herself from flying out there.
Flying to Nashville. And
Yeah.
at a certain point, I was like, go, you have to go. But we had all the blood work, and we had all the thing. We figured out what it was. And when we did, it was able to, but like, there was that 3-week period of like, panic.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be fine.
It's gonna be fun. But you guys, it is, and it will be. And it's like, it is awesome. But yeah. Do you only have the one kid?
Wendy has one.
I have one, a daughter.
Wendy,
so she
you have
has
a daughter.
hers. She's a junior, and then I have a freshman daughter as well. So I have like a bonus at home to kind of tide us over for a little bit, but not very much longer. Yeah, pretty soon it'll be just my husband and I. And Wendy.
Just
We'll
two
make-
of us.
And Wendy.
We'll have to start a new podcast.
Yeah.
Can we throw it back to Mystery 101? And I'm going to make a confession. We have seen the first Mystery 101 and loved it. But we didn't watch it until like this series had concluded. That's a series that obviously the fans super rallied around, and the cancellation devastated the fandom. Wendy has a like memory like a steel trap, and she remembers that people are like, is there anything that could come of that? And you posted some cryptic like, I'm working on something. Is there a mystery series in their future? You made a good point.
Which was what?
This morning you were like, maybe it's Quest.
Maybe it's Quest.
Like maybe that's the homage to the mystery fans.
Do you remember your comment? I don't know where it happened at. It was like on Facebook or Instagram, and it was the official announcement that Mystery 101 was canceled. And you were like, I'm working on something.
Yes, it was Twitter. Back when Twitter was Twitter.
Oh. Okay.
Can you share any more? Is there still a project?
Extra. There is a project, and it takes forever to bring anything to the light of day.
Yeah.
But there is a project that I have been working on that actually, people, the audience knows what it is. It's the Orson Holt, which is a character that I sort of created when I was filming Mystery 101. We were at a book fair, and I was like, it'd be amazing is to just like create a James Bond type character. It'd be, something that I can do for the rest of my life. Like just this character I can drop into age with and the whole thing. And started thinking about this fun sort of way to tell a detective story. And, obviously read Agatha Christie's, the Murder on the Orient Express. And was like, what would be fun is like a Knives Out version of, and it's funny because all of that happened at the same time. Like Knives Out hadn't happened yet. So it was really the genesis of it was, murder on a train. And I was going to be this detective, Orson Holt, and it was going to be a star-studded, like a Hall star. And everyone was locked on a train, and we were going to, someone would get murdered, and we would have to figure out who done it. Very, like, just flat out ripped off Agatha Christie. Pitched it in 2019, and Randy Pope was like, there's no way that's going to happen. It's going to be too expensive. And then I said to Randy, and this is like a super behind the curtain look at how the sausage is made. And I said to Randy, if I get all the actors to agree on a price, what if we do block shooting? So the first group of actors will work on week 1 and 2. The second group of actors will work on week 2 and 3. And we'll have everybody for all scenes that we need in week 2. And if we bill it alphabetically and we all make the same money and it's transparent that we do, can I get the green light? And Randy Pope said to me, that'll never happen. And I called a bunch of actors and they all agreed on a price. And I went back to Hallmark and I said, it will happen. And this is the price that we could all work for. And like, it can happen. And then the thing was like, well, no one wants to see a movie stuck on a train. And I said, well, we can like have the train stop somewhere and they can get off and we get back on. Like we could figure that out. And that was what launched the Wedding Veil series, because then they knew they had a business model, and that launched Three Wise Men and a Baby, because they were like, wait, so people are willing to not work for their full fee and they'll do collaborative stuff. The groomsmen. And so there was a new sort of, my little moment of pride is I didn't get to make my movie, but I did usher in a whole.
You launched 1,000 franchises.
I launched 1,000 franchises. But no, it was interesting because I think the biggest question was like, how do we get actors to join the party without their full pay? And when they realized that we were willing to like do that, I think that kind of changed the game a little bit. So that one in 19 went away. And then it's been a slow slog, but Orson is I'm still pushing Orson up the hill.
Nice. I mean, look, they made 3 movies on a boat on Hallmark Plus, like the Love on the Danube trilogy. They were on that same small
Boat, right?
river cruise boat. And,
Yeah.
and the whole time we were like, they spent too much time off the boat. We're like, we want more boat stuff. So people would watch a train movie.
You think? But they got off the boat, right?
I know, but they got off the boat the whole time. Like, I was like, we want more. This is like pre-cruise. I'm like, give us the boat stuff.
Yeah,
Show
we
us
wanna see the
stuff.
boat.
But I mean, we understand behind the scenes why that didn't happen. But I was like, yeah, spend more time on the boat, because they were, they had these beautiful filming locations that they wanted to use, obviously, which might be more interesting than the interior of the boat. But
Yeah, I think that when you're making a movie, like we gotta show people things, because 84 minutes on a boat, people are gonna go crazy. But
Yeah,
I agree. Like I'm with you. Like if the story is interesting and compelling, then you've got something special.
I would absolutely watch a mystery on a train.
yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
I think it's gonna be like, at the time, I have this incredible poster. Let me see if I can find it. I don't. That's too bad. But it was a poster of like, it was because at the time it was Candace Cameron Bure and Lacey and Nikki and Andrew Walker and Tyler, and it was a really fun thing. But what's cool about it is, so the books that I write with Anna Gomez. Are you guys aware of her? So Moments Like This and Where the Sun Rises. So I was doing a podcast, and the gentlemen that were interviewing us, they published a suspense magazine called Suspense Magazine. It was like a mysteries and thrillers magazine. And so while I was on the podcast, I was like, if I had a short story, would you guys publish it? And they were like, I mean, if it's any good, we would. And I was like, awesome, I'll send you one. And I went after the podcast that night and like in a fever dream wrote an 80,000 word short story about Orson Holt called Lost and Found. You can actually look it up on, it's suspensemagazine.com. It's like an online suspense magazine. and they published it in 2 parts. So it's an Orson Holt. So I created the IP. So now I own this IP that's in the world, and that was published in 2020 and 2021. Or maybe it was this 20, maybe it was just 2020. I don't know. But anyway, that was published. And since then, have written this anthology of short stories. So I have 10 short stories of Orson Holt, which I'm either going to do for Audible or I'm going to figure out something to do with those. But then have taken, and now we're trying to do something special with Orson Holt at Hallmark, and they're interested. They really love the character. They want to put me back to work in another mystery, because it was good medicine. Mystery 101 did its thing.
Yeah. In my mind, I'm like, oh, that could be an audio podcast. Like, wouldn't that be amazing if you could get like Hall Stars doing like the serialized audio for, yeah, that short story series? And,
Yeah.
Hallmark
Cool.
is adapting those podcasts into series. You got Mistletoe Murders on Hallmark Plus. Speaking of Hallmark Plus, they're leaning hard into like reality programming featuring, some of their favorite stars. Is that something you'd ever be interested in doing over there?
The thing, yeah, I actually pitched an idea to them that, again, I don't know that it's the right blend, but so have you guys ever heard of this thing I used to do it called the Polaha Chautauqua?
Yes.
Yeah. So there was this sort of like Sunday show. I'd go live for an hour and I would just talk to people. And it was like almost reverse. I'd be asking Wendy, like, Wendy, tell me about what it's like to be a mom. Tell me your story. And then Wendy would start talking, and then all of a sudden this thing would happen. And because we're being watched right now, and so we're on our best behavior, and we're making sure that everything we say is like, and when you were being watched, there's this thing that happens. I like to call them like truth bombs or whatever, but it's like people all of a sudden, by having the spotlight shined on them, were able to talk about things in a way that was really healthy and healing. And there was some because when we talk, right, and I just said this in Kansas City, I just had the craziest experience. So we were in a panel discussion, and it was about destinations, and it was like pretty glib and superficial, and all of a sudden this little woman stood up and said, the three of us just met. We all lost our husbands in December, and we use Hallmark again to wring out the grief. To like, we use Hallmark as a balm, and it really just kind of put a hush over the room, and it sort of inspired me to tell this philosophy, to share this philosophy that I have, which is everything that we say to each other all day long is us casting a narrative about who we are, what we like, what we don't like, what we believe in, what we want. So everything we say, we're sharing. We're saying, this is who I am. Get to know me. This is what I want. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. This is my story. So we all have this story. And we're constantly shaping and reshaping our narrative as the facts of our lives change and as our circumstances change. We're trying to constantly say, well, who am I? It's like a quest for identity, right? And there's this, I don't know, it was crazy because as I was sharing this, like all of a sudden it just dropped in the room in Kansas City. And like the front row, I was all I could see, but they just like started crying. Everybody started crying. And so that's what was kind of this beautiful thing that would happen on the Chautauqua was like people would call in or we would go live, and then all of a sudden it was a story about, like one day it was about forgiveness, right? It was like, what is the idea of forgiveness? And this girl was 22 and she got hit by a drunk driver. He took her leg off underneath her knee. And she was like, every single day, like 12 times a day, I have to forgive this person. But talking about it in public and talking about it with a group of people that felt like a safe space allowed her to like take a step forward in her forgiveness. And it was just this weird bubble thing. Long story short, I pitched like an on the road Chautauqua where I would go from like town to town and hear people's stories and like just meet the audience, basically. Like I just want to meet you. And it was this idea of, and I don't think it's going to work because travel shows are, I'm told, are expensive and you have to like give something away, and it can't just be, truth.
I mean, I'm all in. I'm like, I'll buy that show.
I mean, I'm all in too. Like,
The Girls Gone Hallmark production company. I'm like, how can we make that happen?
why don't we do it? I did a Polaha Taco Live in Nashville this summer, and that's exactly what it was. Awesome. It was like a really cool. It wasn't as like participatory as like the show would be, because basically like I would show up at your house, and I'd be like, tell me your story, and we would get through all of the stuff of like the chatter stuff, but then at some point like it would drop in, and we would find that thing, and it's amazing when you start like realizing that you are a part of the human race. Like, here's the thing. This is our generation. This is all we have. We have each other. We have these movies, and we have these podcasts, and we have our friends and our family and our audience, and we have this like, it's our community and it's our generation. And at some point we're not going to be here anymore. And so it's really about what we make of it right now, and what is the currency that we're using with each other right now to get along, And I think when you start to like tap into that, it becomes this really beautiful. That's what's fun about the Kansas City and the boat, and like meeting you guys. Again, it's so brief, but even in those little brief moments, those exchanges are really wonderful. Here's a really bizarre thing, and people are either going to like this or not like it, but like I literally pray for people when I'm taking my picture with them.
It's nice.
Like
It's
I'll literally
really
just sit
nice.
there with my hand on them and like just pray for them.
Yeah, that's
Because
really
it's so
lovely.
easy. Like it's
so
such an
nice.
easy, like, you know what I mean? Like easy little thing to do.
I think what's really interesting about you is that you're genuinely curious about people. And I think, well, I'm making that statement about you, so correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how it comes across. Like, you're genuinely curious and genuinely interested. Like, that's not something that you can affect over the long term. Like, you can't fake it.
No.
And I think that's why people like you. I mean, you're incredibly talented. I will die on the hill that your Scrooge scene in A Dickens of a Holiday is the greatest thing I've ever seen in a Christmas movie. I mean, on Hallmark alone, but it is one of the greatest holiday scenes ever. So it's just cool that you're a cool person too. So we super appreciate you sitting here with us this morning. I know you've had an insane travel promotion schedule over the last 2 months, but thank you for taking the time to be here. And why don't you tell people where they can find you to keep up with you?
You can find me on Instagram. I'm at Polaha. And then that's kind of really all. That's
Yeah.
really where I interact the most. I think there's some Facebook stuff. There's the whatever we're calling. What is Twitter? What is it now?
Yeah, X now. I refuse.
Yeah, I mean,
This old dog cannot learn a new trick.
Yeah, I'm on that like very rarely. I rarely go.
Yeah.
But I will say this: I'm going to plug a movie that's coming out next year.
Please.
I produced and directed a movie called Mimics. It's MIMICS, Mimics, about a guy who's a comedian not doing too great, gets this mysterious invitation to join an elite society, and all he has to do is sign, and he takes it, and all of a sudden things start happening. And the things are no bueno. They're good at first, of course. They're amazing at first, but there's a price. And I act in it, so it's my directorial debut as a feature film directorial debut, and I'm super proud of it. I shot it in my hometown of Reno, Nevada. We have a distributor. We're going to have a theatrical release, and I think we're aiming for September. We're looking. It's either going to be, we're either going to do the like beginning of Q2, or I think we're going to aim for that September, like when your kid's going off to college next year.
Yeah, we'll need a distraction.
Well, you'll be able to go see this movie.
Giant tub of
hopefully.
popcorn.
Yeah, yeah. And it's something I'm really, really proud of across the board, just because, I literally raised the money and produced. I mean, it was like this huge labor of love, and again, being able to go home where it all started. And this dream began 30 years ago. I remember watching Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction. I was like, I want to make movies. Like, I want to do that. And it's why I went to NYU, and it's why I do what I do, because eventually I wanted to be able to tell the whole story. And so let's see what happens. Maybe people will hate it and I'll never get to do it again. Or maybe it'll be okay and I'll get to do it again and again.
Oh, we can't wait.
I'm very excited.
Yes.
Sounds awesome.
Thank you again for being here. And thank you for listening to this episode of Girls Gone Hallmark. If you love this podcast, we love your 5-star ratings and reviews. You can leave them in the Apple Podcast app or the app you're listening in. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.